Hey folks, I am Troy and you're watching TroyTube. I recently released the TroyTube Designer Beta software. This is a design and layout program that I've been working on for more than a year, and it's not an editor though. It's not like Photoshop, so it is really meant to help you with your design and layout to prepare your files to print for sublimation and make it easy for you to do that layout and design work and prepare it for whatever blank you're putting it on. And you know, this is a really kind of an experiment for us. I've put a lot of development work into this for the past year and a half almost, and it's, you know, turning out pretty nice. It's pretty easy to use, seems to be pretty stable. I don't know what's going to happen when 5,000 people try to use it, so we'll see how the servers hold up, but we'll make accommodations for that if, you know, that's one of those things that we hope we have that problem. So you guys go play around and use it and click around, and we're going to be doing a free full e-learning course on that soon. But in the meantime, I'm going to do some simple video tutorials just to show you what you can do with it and what kind of ease you can make products with. Now in this video, we're going to do something real simple. And I'm going to go back to when we first started in crafting about 8 years ago, over 8 years ago, almost 8.5 years ago now. And one of the fears that we had was what it cost to basically experiment and play and learn. You know, when you're dealing with adhesive vinyl, it's pretty easy. You know, it's really inexpensive. You can buy even really cheap vinyl to play with. And although your results are going to vary and you're not going to have a good experience a lot of times, that's what happens to a lot of people out of the gate is they buy a machine, they buy the cheapest vinyl they can get, and or the machine and the vinyl in retail sometimes it's not quite up to par, something like Oracal 651 is, and you know, they have a bad experience. I had a bad experience the second day. Told Tammy that I didn't ever want to see the machine again, and yet here we are 8.5 years later with our second company selling supplies. So funny how that works. Anyway, one of the fears was what's it cost to really experiment. You know, like I said, adhesive vinyl, you can go to Dollar Tree, get glassware, get some vinyl, whether it's Oracal or anything. Even if it's Oracal, it's fairly inexpensive to experiment and play. If you mess it up, you peel it off and throw it away. Not a big deal. Now, when we went to heat transfer vinyl and started experimenting with that, that gets a little trickier. The cost is several times higher per sheet, and you're also putting it on an item. And my fear, honestly, was that if I messed it up, I was not only losing $2, $3, $4 for a sheet of heat transfer vinyl, I was also possibly destroying a shirt or a stuffed animal or whatever it was. And you know, one of those fears, honestly, when we started doing this, you know, if you don't know our story, we were doing this for several months to basically pay our bills and put food on the table when we first got started. And, you know, that fear of what's it cost and how you're going to waste money or whatever, especially in today's times. I mean, the economy is much different today than it was in 2015, I can tell you that. And so there's a lot of fears about those kind of things, what it costs to get started and what it costs to actually just learn it. So you don't want to waste things. Nobody likes to waste, right? And that's one of the things with the designer program is I've figured out a way to make it so that you can prepare your design layout and even minimize the waste of ink to a degree. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to make a real simple little project with a neoprene car cup holder coaster. So you drop these in the bottom of your car cup holders, and you know, it'll absorb up the moisture from a sweating cup. You know, if you're fast food cups or whatever you're going to put in there, or anything you might spill down in there. And these are really inexpensive. We sell these on our website for I think $2.99 for a 4-pack of them. So these are a excellent thing to like play around with and get started, because if you mess them up, it's not that big of a deal. And you know, we're going to try to get some different things in here that will give you that ability too, because we know everybody likes to play and learn before you commit to making things as gifts or to even sell on Etsy or whatever. So you know, we really want to help people get through that process, because I feel like there's probably a lot of fear in that, a lot of fear of not understanding how it works or what you should do, you know, how you should apply it, how you should print it, your print settings. All of those things lead up to anxiety and fear of, you know, not really doing what you should do to get into it, which is jump in feet first and just do it. And we want to try to alleviate some of that. So I'm going to switch over to the computer. We're going to make this. Actually, we're going to make a couple of them because I want to show you the template layout too, that allows you to kind of produce things in mass quantities a little bit easier. So let me switch over to the computer and we'll get started. Okay, so to access the TroyTube.net designer beta, again, we're going to go to design.troytube.net, and you should be presented with a login. So you'll log in with the same username or email address and password as TroyTube.net and bulkvinyl.com. All the logins are tied together. So even though they're separate sites that you go to, your username and password will work across those sites. So after you log in, you're going to be presented with templates in different categories of which product you want to design with. And this one happens to be right up front here. I'm actually going to go ahead and click coasters and show you as well. So we have a 3.5-inch round coaster, which is the same as one of the Cricut coasters blanks. There's a 3.75-inch square and round coaster. We have a 3.5-inch square coaster. We don't have all of these on our site, but I went ahead and added them because it was real simple to do so. And then there's the car coaster, and then there's some other layout templates on here that are kind of like the second step that will allow you to press multiples easily and line them up on your heat press without having to juggle around and worry about them being off center or crooked or something like that. So we're going to choose this car coaster 2.75-inch neoprene. And the way this is laid out, again, over on the left, there will be notes a lot of times if there is something special about this particular template. This does have the SKU number, so you can take the SKU number off of your invoice or off of our website if you want to search and find your proper layout or other things that are associated with that particular item. And on the screen, I'm going to zoom in a little bit here at the bottom right so you can see this a little better. And the white area is the actual working area of the item that we're going to apply our image to. The green area is the bleed, so that's kind of like overflow. This is measured out to be about 1/4 inch larger than the actual item. So if you're doing an edge-to-edge design, you're going to want your image to be roughly the size of this green area so that there is no little white edge or anything left on the sides of the item. Now, real easily, we're going to just insert an image, and I already have some uploaded images here, so we're going to grab this picture of Molly and drop it on here. Everybody loves Molly. She is just a sweetheart, and we're going to make that a little smaller so we can work with it. And I want to make it just large enough and centered just right over that. But one of the things that we noticed that we have a problem with is now I can't see it. I don't know where I'm at with the template. So the easy thing to do here is go to the fill bucket. We're going to turn down the transparency, and now we can adjust this a little bit better to where it'll fit in that white area. So I'm going to make that a little smaller, and we have to cover up all the white area, so it has to be just at least that wide to do this. So we'll leave that picture of Molly there, and I think that looks pretty good. Make sure we get it up here in this green plenty enough and wide enough so that there's plenty of bleed over the edge. Okay, now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go down here to the layers panel, or excuse me, not layers, we're going to go to the images panel again, go back to the library, and you'll see all these little purple icons. Some of them you can kind of tell what they are, but they're zoomed in, so you really have to hover over the little eye to see what they are. And I'm going to find this same coaster here, and there it is. This is the car cup coaster, and we'll insert that. It comes in a little large, so we'll adjust the size of that down. And what I can do is center that. Now the template, as you see there, is not perfectly centered, but I can adjust the size to where it's really right about the same size of that green area. And that's going to cover our bleed. And now we're going to go to the layers panel this time. I'm going to select the image, and I'm going to turn all my transparency back up to 100% so that it's nice and vivid. And I'm going to select that layer. I'm going to select this star up here for the mask, and then I'm going to select this cup holder coaster shape that I inserted, and you see it's going to crop and take away all the excess image away from that. And that's going to allow me to press that and get the bleed edge to edge on this coaster. Now, we're really kind of ready to print to a degree. However, we still need to mirror this. So with the image selected, I'm going to go to Transforms and flip X, and that is a mirror option, so it'll be reversed, and when we press it, it will come out correctly. And now the next thing we're going to do before we download this to print it, we don't want all this green stuff behind it or anything. And so we're going to go back to Product. We're going to change Layout. And this time we're going to choose this car coaster layout. And now you can see that I can place this right here in this circle. And if I wanted to make more than one, I could do that and make multiples here. And I could just keep duplicating those if I want and make up to 6 of these in one time. And when I download this to print it, I'm just going to put 1 on here and download and print it. And I'll show you when it prints, you'll see these little lines. These are just kind of like the center crop marks, so you can visually center where you're at. Now, if you, this is pretty easy because of the shape, but sometimes if you may have words or a particular shape or something like that, you might want it centered, and you can use these lines. And sometimes, depending on your monitor and your resolution settings, you might have to zoom in and out to see them. So you can see there, you can see those lines, but when I zoomed out, sometimes they disappear on you. But zoom in and move those around and get them to where you want them. And this, you can tell this isn't quite exact, but it doesn't have to be, because the actual item is smaller than this image, and we're going to get an edge-to-edge bleed design with that. Now, the beauty of this, in most cases, if I was just printing one and did not need to do this, I could download this. When I click download, I can leave this turned off. I'll go ahead and download and show it to you. It downloads a PNG file, and when you open that PNG file, you'll see the document is totally blank except for the image that I needed to print. And this object is really easy to work with just because it has this indentation, and it's real easy that I could print this out and just lay the coaster on top of it and press it and visually center it without too big of a deal. But if I was doing multiples, I would want to leave this on and then download it. And you'll see that it downloads those circles. It's dark, so you can't really see it, but the lines are there and everything. I'll show it to you when I print it out, and that would make things real easy to line up and space these out and press multiples of these at the same time. So we'll switch back over to the camera, and we'll heat press this onto the neoprene car coaster. I'm using Windows Photo Viewer, which is recommended to print these PNG files out that come out of our designer. You can print from other programs, but this one pretty much lays things out for you correctly, and you shouldn't have too much trouble with this. So we can go to these 3 dots and click Print, or hit Control P, and we're going to choose our printer. I have an EcoTank 15,000. I'm printing in portrait mode. I only want 1 copy, and paper size, I want 8.5 by 11 letter. We're going to set it to presentation paper matte for our sublimation paper. And a couple important settings. One, you want to uncheck this box that says let app change my printing preferences. You want these settings set as they're shown on the screen. And then on the next page, one of the important things is that borderless printing is turned off. So we will now print this on our sublimation paper and switch back over to the camera now. Okay, so now we have our printed layout. So now you see the crop marks and lines for centering your objects that I was pointing out on the screen that you couldn't really see. And so the image that I dropped in, as you see, is right where I put it. And when I put the little template, or the item down here on the template, I would basically just visually center it or position it however I want within that thing. And you see that there is an extra space all the way around it, which is essentially where that green area was on the screen. And so when we press this, it will transfer just like what I was showing on the monitor. And so we're going to put a piece of sublimation tape on this to hold it in place. And I'm going to press this item at 380 degrees for about 45 seconds with kind of light pressure. I don't want to put too much pressure with these neoprene items. If you put too much pressure and too much heat for too long, it will kind of melt the rubber backing and kind of squish it out like a pancake a little bit. But you know, if you use light pressure, 380, 45 seconds or so, you should be fine. I'll also point out, if you are not familiar with sublimation and have not done it, you'll notice before I put that down that image it really looks a little bit washed out. But you know, it will brighten up and be nice and bright after it's pressed. So we'll switch over and press this on the heat press and take a look at it. Now I've already turned on the heat press and got it warmed up and everything. One of the things that you're going to want to keep on hand usually is some butcher paper. Plain brown, uncoated, uncolored butcher paper. That allows you to cover your designs and dispose of that, because when you're using sublimation, what happens is when you press it, that ink turns to gas and then it bonds to the polyfibers. So that ink is, like I said, it's gas, and if there's not something there to absorb it, it will get on things. So it will get on your Teflon sheet, it'll get on your pressing pad, whatever it's against. When you press it, it will transfer and get on it. It may not bond to it like it does polyester, but it's going to stain it, it's going to be messy. So now in this case, all I'm doing is I'm just putting a sheet of copy paper over it, and you'll see it'll transfer some over the ink over to that copy paper when I do that. But I'm putting it in with the image on the top side so it's against the hot platen. And we're going to press that for about 45 seconds, and then you'll see that it transfers beautifully. You really have to lose the fear of working with this stuff and dive in and do it. You know, you don't have to start expensive. You can get something as simple as an EcoTank 2400 printer, which is the same one we're doing in our sublimation giveaways right now. Any EcoTank printer that has 4 tanks is what I recommend. In the video that I have on my channel for the DPI sub launch, there is a section, I think it's about the 15 or the 35 minute mark. I think it's the 15-minute mark, where I talk about printer selection, and there are some specific things that you want to consider in that, and there's a lot of information in that video. That video is long, it's about 45 minutes, so I recommend you watch it when you get time, because there is a lot of information and knowledge in that video on getting started and why you want to use our inks. Now, be super careful, because it is hot. You've pressed 380 degrees for 45 seconds. It's going to be much hotter than what a t-shirt is. We're going to try to get some of those gloves in here pretty soon. You can get them on Amazon that are heat resistant. And so I'm going to take this off, and I'll show you the copy paper first. You'll see that it did transfer some of the ink and even some of those lines over onto the paper from this. So we'll remove the neoprene coaster. And there you go, a little coaster of Molly. So you see it's nice and vivid compared to the print, and you can even see where it transferred the ink off of the paper and onto the item. So, you know, those are super easy to make, super easy to play with, super inexpensive to mess around with. And, you know, this is something that you can do and learn and set your own pace. Make your friends these little coasters. Make you know, regular hardboard coasters or ceramic coasters or whatever that are sublimation items, and then graduate into actually making items to sell or to give as gifts. So ease into it, practice, and lose the fear. That's the key.